transmission. Here we are back. No matter what network throws at us, just have to bounce back. So let's just go straight into it. So we have, just like as I was explaining before now, that we have, when you hear the word rural, what comes to mind? When you hear the word rural, what comes to mind? Speaking of which, you can bear me witness that when you hear the word rural community, rural environment, or rural society, what comes to mind is that feeling of inferiority, that feeling of it's a local place. All right, but believe me, you, rural environment, community, or society is more than just being a overpopulated local with less developed infrastructural infrastructurals and other things. There is a lot to the rural environment, the rural society itself. Now, in today's class, we will be dissecting the concept of rural. Now, basically, it is often described as inferior to the urban. All right, the rural community is often seen as rural is often seen as inferior to urban. Now, believe me, you, as much as urban is effective, useful, and vital to the organization of mankind, so as well is rural also as effective, useful, and necessary to the organization of mankind. Now, let's look at this. Distinctions between rural and urban communities. Distinction between rural and urban society. Before we talk about that, bear in mind, when we say rural area or rural communities, these are communities whereby we have a lot of, it's a territory, all right, that is being occupied by a lot of people that are averagely living their life, all right, averagely living citizens of a particular country, occupying a particular territory or space. Speaking of rural, with less developed. Now, we having less developed infrastructure or social amenities doesn't make rural society less important than the urban society, because the rural society does a lot as the urban too does a lot. All right, it's just that here there's a tag on it that this is a rural, a local environment where you see less of advanced building, less of advanced technology, and less of proper architectural land structuring or buildings. But believe me, you, the rural area is as important as the urban area. Now let's take some distinctions now between these two. When we say urban environment or urban society, we have relatively few people here. Okay, we have relatively few people, and here we have a lot of people. Okay, now here the urban community depends on the natural resources produced, made available by the rural communities. Are you seeing now that urban is dependent while rural is independent? Because here natural resources are made available, here production goes on, here the citizens go through the dirty work and make it available for the urban. Now, speaking of developed infrastructural structures, where do you think all the cement, all the blocks and everything used in doing this attractive building in the urban area is coming from? It's coming from here. Where do you think all the farm produce, the good foods and everything is coming from? The only thing that makes here important is because if it is being sold here, the value is lower. All right, but here it will be sold at a higher value and returns is high. So here is they are dependent here. So we have here they are independent. Are we together? Now let's continue. We have limited educational opportunities Okay, here there's something like limited educational opportunities compared to here. All right, there's an already opportunity for education here, but it's overpopulated, oversaturated than what we have here. Meaning that we have less population here, so everything made available goes round. But here, because we have, even with the production and everything, the population is too much. All right, so not enough to go round. So we have that as that. So now let's we have the function of rural societies. Speaking of the functions of rural society, functions of rural societies. Now we have the production of food and other raw material function of the rural society. So we have production of food, the production of food and other what? Production of raw material. So in the urban area, we have the factories, we have everything well developed there. Now the resources, the raw material these factories use, where do you think they come from? Speaking of a timber or a furniture company now that uses timber as its raw resources, where do you think this timber comes from? Do you think these timbers are being harvested in the urban area? No, they are being harvested in the rural areas. All right, so the rural area produce food and also make available raw materials that can be further processed in the urban area, because of they have well advanced technology and tools to bring something out of these resources. So we have that as that. So as well, historically, rural society has also functioned as supplier of the people to the city. All right, so this also function as a supplier. Now I can even testify of this, because people at Abuja, you keep hearing them saying things like, please let me get this particular make of food or this particular type of food, let it be sent to me from other states. All right, maybe like some states that are not as, that we see or we categorize as rural state or community, compared to Abuja that is seen as urban. All right, so they act as suppliers to the cities. All right, they act as suppliers. So we have the third distinctive function of this society is it is a custodian. They serve as custodian of natural resources. So we have 4, custodian of what? Custodian of natural resources. And finally, during the time of crisis, there has been a tendency for rural society to perform a security function, as represented by urban to rural or postponed rural to urban migration. Definitely, when it comes to the time of security, young youths from the rural area are being recruited. All right, young hands and capable hands are being recruited due to the fact that the population here is more, and we have people who are willing to do activities if they are given the opportunity. Opportunity seeking individuals are much here, and they can be easily recruited for security functions. So we have that as that. Now let's talk about the social. Speaking of the social change in the rural society, social change of the present century, we can talk about the growth and application of technological and scientific knowledge, the increase in urbanization, which is the growth of money and market economy. So as well, we have the increase in purposive innovation. Now look at it. It says here social change in in the rural society. Some of the social changes are: one, growth and application of technology and scientific knowledge. That's growth and application of what we call technological and scientific knowledge. Application, I think I should write that into another sheet. So we have growth and application of tech and scientific knowledge. All right, and scientific knowledge. So we also have another change is the increase in urbanization, which has to do with the growth of money and market economy. So although we have the increase in innovation, increase in innovation, and we have the increase in urbanization. Whereby we have under that the growth of money and market economy. So we have that is that. And that concludes what we have on the concept of rural, or when we say rural society, community, or environment. Now, very quickly, let's touch on the meaning of development. Now, when we say development, what are we talking about? Development can be defined as the general improvements. The general improvements in economy. Now, let's take the points first. The what? General improvements can be seen as the general improvements. This improvement could now be improvements in economic, social, and political conditions of the whole society in terms of reduction or elimination of poverty. Now, this improvement happen not just in some parts of the country, but in the what? In the whole country. In the whole country. Okay? And this improvement could be such as reduction of poverty, reduction of inequality, injustice, insecurity, unemployment, and so more. Also, we can see development as what entails a shift, okay, a shift, an upward shift from one end to another over a period of time. Okay, a shift from where? A shift. Development entails a shift, meaning a upward shift, not a downward, a upward shift from one certain time. It has a beginning, okay, and it might, in most cases, have an ending, all right, from one end to another over a period of time. A shift from one end to another over a what? A period of time. So we have that as that. Now, let's talk about some certain points about development. Development contributes to what? Certain points that you need to know about development. Development contributes to the well-being and comfort of the people. If you say there has been a development, then it has to be visible. It has to affect directly or indirectly the well-being and the comfort of the people. So that people can say, yes, before it used to be like this, now it is better. Development is also a process and it is what's supposed to be continuous. It is a process and is expected to be what? Continuous. Development is also quantitative. Are we together? Development is quantitative. Quantitative in the sense that it increases per capita income. Okay, it increases per capita income. Definitely increase the standard of living. Speaking of the capital income, it definitely affects the standard of living of each and every member of that community or society. So we have that as that. It like I said earlier, it has to affect the quality of life and the standard of living has to be positively. And don't forget, development can be negative or positive. But what we are talking about here is the positive development, not the negative ones. So we also have the dimensions of development. Dimensions dimensions of development. Speaking of which, we have the social development, we have the economic development, we have the political, cultural, and religious. So we have the social, development, economic, social development, economic development, political, cultural, we have cultural, and we have religious. These are the dimensions. What we say dimensions? Other parts that development can occur. Other parts that development can take effect, so as we have them. So now let's continue. So we have here what are the importance of development, or what are the contributions of development? All right, just a moment. I think this is repeated. Just a moment. So having spoken of the dimensions, now let's look at that development that happens in the rural environment. That development that is particular, the development that is particular, that is intended, that is focused on the rural environment. Permit me to raise the board so we can take point on that. Okay. According to UOB in 2007, rural development can be what? Can be viewed as the development of moral, social, political, and economic potentialities of the rural communities in order to enhance their self-reliance through the provision of appropriate infrastructure. Now let's take it one step at a time. We have rural development. Like I always tell us, this is 300 level. You have to what? Always know how to develop your points, to create and develop them, expand on your points. So let's take just a moment. Now, Umobi's definition, Umobi in 2007 says rural development can be viewed as the development of the Umobi in 2007 says rural development can be viewed as the development of moral, social, political, and economic. Moral, social, potentiality. What? Potentialities. Not litty, potentialities of the rural community. Of the rural community. That's the first step. Now, these communities will thereby be enhanced, having developed their potentialities in these various areas. This will help them to what? To enhance, this will help to enhance their self-reliance. Self-reliance through the provision of, this self-reliance can be improved upon by also providing social, by also providing the appropriate infrastructure such as pipe-borne water, electricity, good roads, small-scale industry, increase their political consciousness, and participate, promote their moral and social well-being, which will result in tolerance, good discipline, justice, fairness, love, and peace. And that is a holistic, that is what I call a holistic development. That was given by Umobi in 2007. So we have that as that. Now let's continue. So now we also have, speaking of rural development, you cannot overemphasize on the fact that improving the standard of living is highly essential. Improving the standard of living of the population is highly essential. Okay? Also talking about the sharing of resources to the low income region. Improve standard of living. Share what we call resources allocation. Resources allocation to what? To low income regions. Like there are some regions that they don't really have much there, no proper organization, no industry, nothing. So these regions have to be put into consideration, and making the process of self-sustaining power development of appropriate skill and preparation of proper skill. Now, we also have enabling the citizen. The members of the community or citizens. No, it's a comprehensive one. Yeah, you have to improve their standard of living. Okay, doing this, you also need to think of how to get resources to where they are most needed, and as well, when these resources get there, ensure you strengthen, ensure you strengthen the members of that community or the citizens themselves, as this will help them to get better. So we have that as that. So very quickly, let's quickly touch on what we call principles. Okay, principles. Let's touch on what we call principles. Now, when we say principles, what are we talking about? Okay, principles, according to Onwa in 1988, a principle is a basic truth or a general law. According to Onwa in 1998, it is a what? It is a basic truth or general law. A basic truth or general law. It's a basic truth or a general law determining the existence and regulating the conduct of an organization and distinguishing it from other systems. Basic truth or general law, and this law determines what? The existence. Existence, and not just that, it also regulates the conduct and regulates the what? The conduct of the organization, making it what? Stand out from the rest. This organization is known for this principle. This organization is known for that principle. It's how things are being done, and that and that. So we have principles. Speaking of the rural development now, what are some principles to consider? Principles under the rural development are therefore fundamentals. Okay? Under the rural development, there are fundamentals and general rules laid down by rural development experts in order to do what? Guide the conduct of rural development programs. Simple as that. Such a way that stated objective can be effectively achieved. Let's say that again. Principles of rural development are therefore fundamental and general rules, and these fundamental and general rules are laid down by who? Development experts. Why? In order to what? Conduct rural development programs in such a way that stated objective can be achieved effectively. So we have that as that. So before we call it out for tonight, we'll quickly touch on what we call plan. Okay, touch on plan. Please let's not be disturbed. For those of us that are a member of the private class, we are getting the keynote and a lot of detailed things are there. So we might not really get to teach everything in the general class, but when you get your keynote, you'll find out that there are a lot of detailed things that you're needing for your exam that are in your keynote. And it's actually for free for every member of private class. Please, this keynote we sell them to non-members for up to 2,000 naira per course. But you as a member of private class will get this for free. So please do well to join the private class so you can also benefit from this advantage. And for those of us that are here to do our TMEs, do well to reach out to us for your perfect assistance and grading. All right. So please, for us that are also online going through these classes, it's expected that you send your note at the end of this class. Highly essential. So now, very quickly, let's touch on plan. Plan, according to Olanrewaju in 2010, is a statement of how a thing is to be done. A statement of how a thing is to be what? To be done. As according to Olanrewaju in 2010. So we have that. So planning has some elements, and basically these elements should be observed to get the best results. This element should be observed to get the best results. Now you need to put into consideration, programs should be based on existing real conditions. All right, programs should be addressed and the felt need of the people has to be addressed. Highly essential. Okay, so we have a diagram here which we are going to be taking in our next class, development project, that. Thank you very much, everyone. Please, let's do what to keep all in subsequent tutorials. Do have a wonderful evening. Bye.